To order at 6 p.m. Any public comment? Any board comment?
I'd like you to notice that at 6 o'clock, my computer's working.
I'll make sure we know that you've got that, Michelle. Got it. Very
In the
important.
minutes.
Okay. 6 o'clock, we're closing and going to closed session. Adjourned.
All right, there we go.
Good evening. Has everybody found a seat that wants to sit? I'm on. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? The only ones who are listening.
Right there, Bill Wise.
Good evening. We're reconvening from closed session. I'd like to start with roll call. We have 5 board members here. Mr. Freitas is teleconferencing and Mr. Heberly is not present. Welcome, girls. Should say ladies. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's go with Mr. Connection.
Salute, pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Connexted. We have 2 report out items from closed session. We have 2 appointments to elementary vice principals. The first one is Kim Griffin. Mr. Neely motioned. Mr. Connect said second, and the vote was 5-0 to appoint her as a new elementary vice principal. There were also 2 absent votes. Same voting procedure on the second nominee, which was Christine Neal. Mr. Nava motioned, Mr. Porto second, and the vote was 5-0 to offer the position with 2 absentee votes. So congratulations to our district. We're moving right in. Oh. I was going to say, we have to have comments from the public. They're bringing them over. Comments from the public. Please have speakers state their first name and last name before starting. I'm gonna give you the Reader's Digest version because most of you have been here enough times that you hopefully understand the buzzer system or the light system. Solid green for 1 to 2 minutes. The flashing green starts when you have 1 minute left. The orange flashes when you have 30 seconds. And the red and the beeping means time's up. And I know at the end of it, when you're trying to wrap it all up, I'll give you a couple seconds in there because I know some of those last minute points are really important. And each speaker has 3 minutes a total. So we're moving on. I have 3 yellow slips. Nobody else? Any takers in the audience that haven't filled one out yet? All right, we're going to start with, I'll give all 3 names so you can all come up so we're ready to go. Brenda Murak, am I saying that right? I apologize. Thank you. Kelly Hanston and Kimberly Freeberg. Brenda, would you like to go first? Sure. Great.
Just the right size. I'm Brenda Morard from Sutherland Elementary. When I was growing up, the 3 R's referred to reading, writing, and arithmetic. Tonight I feel the 3 most critical R's are recruit, retain, and respect. Let's start with a quick vocabulary lesson. Normally in my class, students repeat after me verbal and motion. Recruit, verb. To select and persuade someone to join an organization. Retain, verb. Holding motion. To keep someone engaged in one's service. Respect, verb. Hands over my heart. To pay proper attention, not violate. We have heard the phrase recruit and retain for many years. It is used in any language for funds such as Measure U, for example. When a specific board member came to ask Leah for support to get it voted in, I asked how much of the funding will go to recruit and retain teachers. The response was actually none of these funds can be used for that purpose. It is only to upgrade schools. However, this language was printed on all flyers and is currently on the district website. Of course, students and teachers do not want to be in decrepit buildings, but that is not what draws us in. Any teacher worth their weight also knows you must back up any claims that you make. Rebranding schools and district logos during a pandemic does nothing to recruit or retain teachers. Honestly, it seems like a waste of funds that can be used for much more needed supplies. We need students and teacher desks that are not taken down or defaced. Students deserve to sit in chairs that are not cracked and pinching their skin or missing legs. We need flexible seating for our busy friends. To classrooms that need cabinetry that is not broken or missing drawers. Students deserve art supplies to engage them in cross-curricular learning. We need nurses, paras, counselors, yard duty custodians, and they need to be paid accordingly. These things attract and retain teachers. We are tired of hollow statements. Curriculum Council is a body of teachers that review programs and curriculum. They evaluate their purpose and validity. Several things have completely bypassed Curriculum Council, and other things are being brought forward despite them not being recommended. When this committee has pointed this out, they've been told they are only a recommending body, and the district does not need their approval. Though this may be technically true, why wouldn't a district want to listen to teachers? Aren't we a good judge of what will be effective in our classroom? Do you not trust our professional judgment? This behavior devalues us and continues to divide us. Bargaining has continued to be a large issue. For the last COLA, cost of living adjustment, not a raise, we were informed the district does not have to pass this on to staff because there's nothing in the law saying that it has to be given to staff. COLA is being offered, but a slight 2.93%, which is combined, does not cover the cost of inflation. That's too much to ask. We have risen to every occasion that has been expected of us. We are not asked or consulted, just told and expected to do. That goes against the very definition of respect. Every bargaining session is being headed up by an attorney at hundreds of dollars per hour to simply say no. Bargaining in good faith is not happening. No is the answer to things that don't even cost the district anything. Canaan videos have become excessive at the benefit of the district. On average, a teacher must complete about 6 hours. That is a work day. We are not given contract time to complete these. To take one of our 5 days in the first week and use it for Canaan videos would cost you nothing. Add more, but I'll try another time.
Thank you. Welcome, Kimberly.
Good evening, Dr. Washer, President McFarland, and members of the board. I am Kimberly Freeberg at Lockford School, 2nd grade. I've come to speak tonight about contract negotiations. How the district treats their teachers speaks volumes. Respecting their time and not overloading them with extra work is essential to delivering quality education. Teachers spend over 6 hours in Keenan training videos that are to be done, in the words of the district, as professionals' responsibility per the bargaining today on our own time. Yet you refuse to pay us for this time. So your time is worth more than our time. You refuse to use one of the 5 non-instructional days to give us the time to do this. And that would cost the district nothing. But 7 years ago, you gave us time to prepare our classrooms during that week. How kind of you. More and more work gets piled on, which doesn't in turn allow teachers to actually get things ready for their students. Respect our time. Prep time is the time that teachers are supposed to be preparing for students. Primary teachers get less than 1 hour a week to prepare for IEPs, SSTs, pink and blue cards, communicate with parents, grade work, and so much more that directly influences the quality of education in Lodi Unified. I stand here in front of you again this evening speaking on behalf of my fellow teachers. We ask that you designate one of our 5 non-instructional work days to complete district-required Keenan videos. Thank you.
Welcome.
Good evening, Ms. McFarland, members of the board, Dr. Washer. When I started working at this district, it was the highest paid district in our area. We were the most respected district. And I've said this at board meetings before, our realtors used to love to say, and it's a Lodi school district, because you were getting something great then. Lately, well, just last week, we interviewed the most magnificent candidate for a spot we had at our site for a 5th grade teacher. This woman was fantastic. She had so much energy. I was envious of the kids who were going to be lucky enough to be in her class. Everything. She was off the charts. The way she talked about how she related to her kids. You just knew the kids were going to get a fabulous education with her. And she wanted to work with us. She liked the people who were interviewing her. Things were looking really good. And then reality struck. She found out how much, as a 7-year transfer teacher, she would be making. And one of her biggest complaints was that our health benefits, we pay for our health benefits, and in Oakland she was not paying. And she would have taken a huge cut in pay to come and work for us. So she's checking out Manteca and Stockton, other school districts. We lost a wonderful person. I mean, this woman, she made me envy her. And I think I'm a pretty darn good teacher. We really need to get serious about how we're paying, how we expect to recruit people. I've heard over COVID, I'd listen to you, and every now and then you guys would drop, teachers don't really work for money. In oblique ways, not straight out there, but you kind of say it. And I was thinking, no, when I first started working here, I saw how quickly I could go across in 3 years, all the way to the top of the salary schedule. Not because I'm a money-hungry person, but I was buying boots for kids to go to science camp. I was buying dresses for former kids' graduations. My classroom was full of books. A child expresses an interest. I go to the library, see if I can find it in our library. We don't have it. I go to the bookstore and I get it for them with my money. So the idea that teachers don't really need this money to create the best situation for our kids, I don't know how you think the salary is not an important way to attract people. We are almost at the bottom side. Jefferson is higher than us. And this cannot continue. We've just gone down, 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 down. And it's your job to make this the best place for teachers and the best place for our students. And if we can't get those good teachers, we're not going to be the best place ever. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Thank you all for your comments, and thank you for being polite and respectful in the audience. We really, as a board, we appreciate that. It's much easier to listen to you and hear what you're saying, so thank you. We're moving on to Spotlight. Mr. Neely.
All right, thank you, President McFarland. Can you bring up that PowerPoint, please? The PowerPoint that I had to put on the agenda is actually just data slides that I was using. I had to get something on there. And my home office staff, which consists of two 6-month-old kittens, didn't do a lot to help me on this. So here we are. To begin with, I want to thank President McFarland and Dr. Washer for giving me the time to do this. Student achievement is the most important thing that we do. It's why we're here. It's what we get paid the big bucks for. I apologize ahead of time for any issues on this presentation because, like I said, it did have to go rather quickly. And lastly, before I get started, I want to recognize that Lodi Unified is not alone in the issue that I'm going to talk about. It's statewide. Probably countrywide, but I don't have access to that data. I can definitely attest that it is statewide. I also want to recognize the hard work that has gone in to improve student performance, because it has improved. I'm going to show you that, but it's just a long way from where it needs to be, in my opinion. From the classroom to the superintendent to the board and every person in between has worked hard to improve student achievement over this time. Can I get the first slide, please? All right. So let's talk about what I mean by student achievement. We're talking about our standardized test. Now, our standardized test perfect? No, by no means. And we all know exceptions to it. But by and large, that's what we've got right now in order to work with. So we don't discount all of it. We take it and we look for trends. It's a valuable source of data that can be used to evaluate and direct efforts to improve student achievement. Now you can see that the state has the standards. So what is student achievement? Well, it's the ability to be able to meet those standards, and that is tested through our CASP test. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Can I get the next slide, please? All right. This is a little bit about what I used as I went through here. First of all, I used the CAPS test administered in 2015 to 2019. It was not administered in 2020, and I did not use the 2021, as that was immediately after the COVID, and it would have a tendency to skew the results on this. So that's what I used, and I only used ELA resorts because my office staff told me that was enough right now, that they wanted their chairs and stuff back. So this gives us a good indication of where we're going, and it's good enough right now. I'm looking at some more in-depth analysis of all of our data as we go forward. Next slide, please. All right. When you look at the CASP websites from CDE, you're not going to see these numbers exactly like this. You have to go inside to some charts they have that actually have the scores, and you've got to work with it. And it's a little, takes a little bit of time because the lowest score that a third grader can get on a CASP test, the absolute lowest, is 2,111. And then the upper is 2,600 and something. So it's kind of tough to interpret that data. So what you've got to do is you've got to make some interpretations on it yourself. And that's about as close as I get. So you can see that exceeded standards, 74% and above. The met standards is 62 to 74. Now the combination of those two is where you get your score that's listed on the website. Nearly met standards is kind of interesting. That's 50 to 62%. Standards not met is another area that we have to look at because that's anywhere from 50 down to 0. And it really gives an indication of students that are really in trouble. We don't know how bad of trouble they are in just by looking at this because they could have 5% or they could have 50%. And we all know that's a great deal of difference. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to look at the achievement gap in two different ways here. We're going to look at meet or exceeded standards, those above 62%. We're also going to look at standards not met, students that fail to attain a minimum of 50%. Next slide, please. All right. I just want to throw this up there to look at where we stand with our larger organizations. First of all, you can see this is 2009, met or exceeded standards, English language arts. State was at 49%. The San Joaquin County was at 43%. Lodi Unified was at 44%. These don't take into account some other numbers for the economic status, which I'm going to look at a little bit later. But this state actually has a much lower rate of economically disadvantaged students than we do. We're at about 69%, they're at about 60%. Next slide, please. This is the standards not met. You can see that the state and Lodi Unified has the exact same numbers, even though we have a higher percentage of economically disadvantaged. And then San Joaquin County is 32. By looking at those, you say, okay, well that's not too bad. That's for 2019. Let's dig in a little bit deeper. Next slide, please. All right. We're going to take a look at the impact of economic status on student achievement. We're going to look at non-economically disadvantaged and economically disadvantaged. These are not my terms. These come right off of the CDE website. Next slide. Okay. Economic status. I don't like that term, the economic status, but that's the term that they use, so that's what we'll use. And then there are the two. And then you can see again that Lodi Unified sits at about 69%. Next slide, please. All right. This slide indicates the district standard. The middle bar is the not economically disadvantaged. And then the last bar is economically disadvantaged. And this is a graphic view in 2019 of our achievement gap. You can see on there that Lodi Unified has a status of about 26 points. Our economically disadvantaged students are coming in about 26 points lower than the not disadvantaged students, which in my opinion is significant. Next slide, please. All right. What we're doing here is I took a third grade class, 2000 14 and 15. This is the entire third grade class, Lodi Unified, and I followed them for the 5 years, the 5 testing cycles that are on the website. And we can see what happens there. All right, again, the blue on this is the not disadvantaged on this one. The middle bar is the disadvantaged, and then the gray bar on the side is the achievement gap. Now, as you can see, for various reasons, test scores fluctuate. They're different tests, different years. We've learned more. They evolve every year, and they change every year. But there is a trend going on. And that trend is that we tend to keep a relatively high achievement gap. And in the 5 years, the 5 testing cycles that I tracked this, we changed 1 point per testing cycle, 1 point per year. Yes, we're making improvements. And quick math down there at the end, if you look at it, we have an achievement gap of 25. It would take 25 years for us to close that gap. But I'm here to tell you that that won't happen then either, because if there are other factors that we don't control, that will never allow that gap to go away unless we do something else. That was met or exceed standards. Let's see the next slide, please. Did not meet standards. And you can see that we still tend to have that achievement gap just like that. And this is important because we don't know where these kids are at exactly. We don't know if they're 5%, if they're 25%. These are the kids that are really in trouble. And you can see that that achievement gap for this, for do not meet standards, tends to stay fairly steady as possible. We did 6 points, but we've always got that area of kids who have some really strong issues. All right, next slide, please. The next thing I wanted to do was to take a look at third grade year after year after year. To tell us where those kids are coming, how they're coming to us. So these are all going to be third grades over the next 5 years. Different set of kids each year. All right, next slide. On this one, you can see the graph is pretty much the same. This is the achievement gap for that third grade. You can see it varies between 30 and 31% points. We have not made a huge dent in that area. And that's something that we need to look at. Now, you got to keep in mind, these are kids that we've had from between 3 and 5 years. Not all of them. Of course, some of them just came to us. But the majority of the kids we've had for anywhere from 3 to 5 years. And this is where we're at. Now, at this point, I will make it clear that I don't blame a person that works for this district. This is not anybody's fault here. This comes from society, and that's something that we have to work on. Next slide, please. All right, the do not meet standards, you can see the same thing holds true here. 26 to 24 points. And again, those are all third grades. Next slide, please. So what causes the economic status achievement gap? That's tough. It's going to require us to do a lot of work to understand it. Bring up the next slide, please. These are some of the things that are not impacted in the classroom. Consequences of poverty include family, parental education. It makes sense. The lower the education level, the less likely the family is to make money, as much money. Lack of adequate housing. We've got families that live 3 families to a house. Many of them have 2. Some of them don't have houses. We've got kids that sleep in closets. We've got all kinds of issues. It's tough for those kids to come to school the next day and participate effectively and learn. Parental involvement, that can be for a number of different reasons. Sometimes it's for drugs. Sometimes it's because they're out there working 2 and 3 jobs. There's a lot of reasons for that. Lack of proper food and nutrition. We do what we can here, and our food service does a tremendous job. All of our schools do a tremendous job in trying to get food out there, but it's limited. There's only so much that we can do. We need to affect that at the home as well. Lack of proper medical care. Many people don't know what's available to them. Cultural barriers. This comes in all kinds of forms, both religious. I've seen some families that they don't want their girls to achieve. And that's sad. I'll tell you real quickly a story about Daniel. He was a student of mine in 6th grade at Creekside. Daniel saw his brother shot and killed in front of his eyes when he was in 5th grade. He had all kinds of issues. He came to 6th grade. Daniel and I got along great. He was doing so good. He was picking back up on it. Took the kids out to, after school, walked them out for the parents to pick up. Daniel and I are standing there talking. We're laughing. And all of a sudden somebody yells, "Fight, fight!" We both looked over there. All of a sudden Daniel took off and ran over there, and he starts jumping in. And I'm like shocked. I run over there and I grabbed him. I pulled him out of there. And not quite in these words, but I said, "What the heck are you doing?" And Daniel said, "Well, that was my cousin." And my uncle told, and I knew he lived, his mother and her brother lived together with all the kids. And he said, "My uncle told me that if one of us gets in a fight, we better both be in there." And the first thing I had was anger about father doing this to this young guy. And then it dawned on me, that uncle is trying to help those kids. Trying to help those kids survive in the areas that they live in, which was out in the Kelly Drive area. So, there are all kinds of barriers. Perceived lack of need for education. Yeah, we have those issues as well. And then lack of educational resources and influences. Another quick story, I used to assign redoing the spelling words, you know. I'm sure all the elementary teachers have done that, you know, you write them so many times. One of my students brought it back, he didn't take any paper home, he brought it back on the back of a bill envelope. He had written his words down on that. And he was afraid I was going to be mad at it. Man, I was overwhelmed that he did that, you know. But there are those resources. Next slide, please. Those are all things that we don't control in the classroom, that we don't have any impact over in the classroom. Next couple of things are language barriers. We can help with that. And lack of understanding, we can help with that also. All right. Next slide. Our achievement gap. Our current efforts to eliminate the achievement gap have been only minimally successful. They have been some. I mean, there's success there. I don't want to discount that. People have worked hard on this, and we have made somewhat of an impact. We cannot abandon our current efforts, but we must do more. We must better define the exact issues that face our students and families of poverty and develop strategies to address those issues. And then we've got to adapt a holistic approach. We've got to go back and address those other issues, those issues of poverty. And how do we do that? Well, we can't do it by ourselves. But there are a number of community organizations out there that can help us with this. We need to enlist their help. We need to make our schools community centers where parents can get the aid, where we can take care of food stamps, housing assistance, medical assistance. We can address issues of domestic violence. That parents know that they can come there and get help. That we can help our kids. Next slide, please. And this is the bottom line. The only way that we're going to alleviate that achievement gap is to make it our primary goal and address the issues of the whole child. not just the child in the classroom.
And you need staff.
What was that? Okay. And it's not going to be easy. Next slide, please. Difficulty is a challenge. It's not an excuse. I'm sorry that you find this funny.
We're already doing this stuff.
It can be fixed. What next? This is what I'd like to see happen. We need to set a specific date for a study session to address the student achievement and the achievement gap. We need to have multiple study sessions on this. We need to have what we used to call the courageous conversation. There are issues out there. We need to talk about why these things are happening, how we can help bring assistance to our families. We need to focus a portion of each board meeting on eliminating this achievement gap. It's not going to be easy, it's going to take time. But the sooner we get started on it, the sooner we'll get done. I'd like to see, and I'm calling for a study session on this as soon as we can and get started. And that's all I've got. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Neely. Board comments.
How about public comment?
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Dr. Washer, I can take public comments, correct?
You can.
Great. Let's stick to our board. If we have no comments, I'd like to do public. We'll do 20 minutes or until, Michelle, do you want to come up and we'll do our 3-minute enacting so we can work through our agenda. Great. Welcome, Michelle.
Good evening, President McFarland, members of the board, community, Dr. Washer. Mr. Neely, we would agree with you that looking at achievement is important.
Michelle, I'm having a real tough time understanding you.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's a little bit better.
Okay. We appreciate you bringing forward achievement and student achievement. And we agree that student achievement is a measure to see how we're doing. There are many things that in the LCAP have brought forward how to bridge that achievement gap. We've talked about things like parenting partners, teaching English to our families. We've brought forward in the past PK classes, AVID, CTE courses that enhance and enrich and encourage the participation of students. We really need to address the number one bottom line thing is a teacher. A teacher needs to be in every single. I am sure you are aware that we have some classes that still do not have a Lodi Unified teacher teaching the class. You have contracted positions outsourced at our digital academy. We also have unfilled positions from high school to elementary. They've had a revolving sub every 60, 30 days. They've had a teacher that had to leave in December for medical reasons, has been unfilled. Some sites have multiple missing positions that are still unfilled. Those students are not getting a proper, in my opinion, proper education because they do not have an instructional leader in their classroom. We think that this is key. We do believe that the whole child is important. The other thing that is a challenge and not an excuse is looking at curriculum and valuing what teachers say is good curriculum going forward. I'd also like to point out to you the community schools grant. That is something that we can talk about, but it involves a trusting relationship between your employee groups, the board, and the cabinet. And I would love to go forward in those discussions. Thank you.
We can discuss things, okay?
This is a blessing to see, Neely. It's nice to see the exchange finally.
What's that?
It's nice to see the exchange.
I'm sorry, we have to, it's between these two, thank you.
I understand what you're saying, and I'm trying to concentrate on some of the things that that we're not doing that I think can make an impact. It is extremely difficult. I mean, I know you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, and it's tough when you're existing down on that lower level to worry about those other things. And so those are the things that I'm trying to address here. Now, there are some resources out there in the county that we could bring in without any great cost. The organization's already funded. That's what I'm looking to do here. The other things, we've been trying to do, and we're going to try to continue to do. But what we need, what our families need, is more help. And I believe if we can do that, that's another segment that we get. Curriculum and what happens in the classroom will never get us all the way. It's going to help, absolutely. We can't do without it. That's what I said. But we've got to try to address that other issue as well. That's my thought.
I agree, and I don't know if you're familiar with the community schools grant that the state is moving forward with. And there are many resources that are available, but it is like a school site council on steroids,
Right.
where everybody has a say and it's a democratic process, and the site decides what is best for the needs of those local students. And what Needham may need is different than what Sutherland may need. And that body should help charge and turn the ship and bring those resources for those different things. So
And we have no argument on that.
I
No
think
disagreement
going
whatsoever.
forward, those are things that we can look at bringing forward to bring that gap. The trauma, as I talked about last time, addressing it with adults so they can help with the students is big. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
We all have similar stories to both of the student stories you shared, and that influences them every day in a classroom. And these teachers behind me here are dealing with those relationships and trying to build those relationships with the students with strain trauma. How many, people saw the thing that happened in Sacramento last week and our heart all broke. That happens on a daily basis in some of those neighborhoods.
Exactly.
We need to address that. Agreed.
No, you're absolutely right. And what's really sad too is that these resources exist now. Yes, I'm familiar with the grant, but these resources exist now and haven't, but our people don't know how to get to them. So my remarks are addressed primarily to my colleagues to try to get those resources brought to the school site.
I'd
In
make sure
addition
that,
to the other things that we're doing.
include them in the conversation. Include the school sites in those conversations
Oh,
they can
absolutely.
identify.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Kelly Hanston. I started my career as a science specialist in our district, and then we got rid of that program in the year we got the Golden Bell. Then I started working at Sutherland, and I had a 5-6 combo. And I really think if we're going to start this, one of the first things that we need to get rid of is combo classes entirely. And we had a system at Claremont at one time that pretty much is what you want. They had medical facilities available for the people. Have you looked at what we had like 20, 25 years ago?
Right, we had that also.
It was working beautifully, and then unfortunately the woman who was running it was injured in an accident and things changed. But we had it going, and we can do it again. And I think the teachers will be 100% behind you, but you need to do some things to help the teachers too.
Thank you.
I appreciate the term courageous conversations. I think a lot of us feel very frustrated though with that statement because we've tried to participate in courageous conversations with the district, the think tanks, our ideas, and it's always kind of like, no, but we need something other. It's always something other than our ideas. And I wanted to share the last thing that I had wanted to bring up earlier was I got the chance to go to RCA over break, so Ron Clark Academy. And having been teaching for 16 plus years, I was getting beat down with everything, with COVID, with negotiation, all these things just weigh on you. Working in a Title I school with those kids that you're exactly talking about, all these situations, you know, and I'm a single parent. My daughter grew up with a single teacher who then would spend a ton of her own money that should be going to her own daughter to spend on her students. So my daughter went out without even more so because I was giving it to my kids in my classroom because they had a higher need than my own daughter did. So this academy inspired me. They bring in kids from all over Atlanta, all different economic statuses, and they all succeed. The underlying factor there was the respect of their teachers. They pay their teachers extremely well.
Well, I'm sorry. The presentation warrants comments, so they have the right to have their comments.
I mean, you know,
You need,
I mean, look, guys.
you need to, you got to do your presentation, and I think
Yeah,
it's
no,
only
that's
fair of
not what
us
I'm
to
saying.
listen.
If we want to talk about what we can do, but we're turning this into negotiations here.
No, you're not. I don't believe that.
No, they're not.
I believe that you opened
Sure.
an
Go ahead, go
opinion,
ahead.
they have the
We
right
got
to
some.
speak. Yeah.
I noticed the respect. The administration and the teachers work together. They're very valued in that school, and everything they do is with the support of the administration. It's a group effort. And all I'm saying is those courageous conversations aren't about bringing everybody else in all the time. Sometimes that's great. But we need to value who's here and putting in the work every single day, morning until late at night. We are here doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to remind everybody to state your first and last name so Michelle's able to put it in our minutes. Thank you.
I'd be happy to do so. I'm Martha Snyder from Stockton, California. I'm a community member.
Welcome.
And the reason that I came to the podium is back in the day, circa year 2000, in this school district we had a very vibrant Masonic student assistance program, and Mr. Neely, I think you might remember that. The thing I heard in your presentation tonight, Mr. Neely, is of all the things that are bad in our neighborhoods, we can't change that. We couldn't change it in 1990, let alone in 2022. So the Masonic Students Assistance Program does bring resources in, does look at helping the family, but also focuses the fact on what can we do within the school, because there's only 4 things that we can really address. It's attendance, grades, health of the student, and behavior. And the Masonic Students Assistance Program does have a way of creating teams that address the whole child, and it is a beautiful program. I hope you will go back and investigate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Marielle Patrice Jensen. I'm a music teacher here within the district, and I have a unique privilege of being at multiple school sites.
Having a tough time here.
Okay, I'm a singer. I can do better.
There you go.
I'm a music teacher here of 7 years. I came in on the internship program, and I have the privilege of working at 4 different school sites. And I think that your presentation had noble ideas. The problem that I see is that our staff that can provide those things are not staying. I cannot come back to school year next year and go to Manteca and make $17,000 more because they're accepting 21 years of experience. I can stay in my county of Sacramento City. I used to live here in Lodi. I moved, got married. And make another 13 based on their strike that they have. And not have to commute the 45 minutes to the community and the relationships that I've built with my students at John Muir Elementary for this past 7 years. You've got to pay your people. You've got to pay our school nurses. All of that about clothing, communicating with parents, getting medicals, ear tests, eyesight. It's all feasible. There are no school nurses. There are very few, if I may. They're not getting paid. Enough. Not enough to stay. So I like your ideas. People need to be paid. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Tim Stutz. I'm a 21-year teacher at Liberty High School, so I see the end results of what you're saying. And it pains me because I'm lucky. I teach at a site where we have very small classrooms, so we're able to make connections with kids that other teachers can't make. And I hate when kids come to me, oh, the teachers at those high schools don't care. And I know they care because of my friends. They spend Friday nights, Saturday nights doing homework, getting stuff ready. But one of the things that I think is the biggest problem is we don't look at class size. How is a teacher who has 5 periods of 45 kids plus going to make any connections with a kid? I'll have to, there's days where I'll have to spend an hour with one kid just to get him through the day. And I'm lucky in my environment I can do that. How are they going to do that at the high school level? You have 4 counselors for 2,000 students. How is a counselor supposed to do anything but plan schedules? So I think your ideas are great, George. We went through class together. Those are some of the same things we talked about back then. But we've got to find a way to get the resources to us. Because my site, we're fortunate. We have some ambiguity. Other teachers don't. They got benchmarks they have to follow. So if a kid falls behind or a kid's absent more than 3 days, they don't have the time to go find that kid. We need somebody to help them out.
Thank you.
Kelly Hanston again. And I had so many ideas when you were talking, George, but this is kind of follows, can you hear me? This kind of follows on what Tim was saying. But I want to have data to support it. We had a program that CTA had when they won the money back from the governor. And we had, at our Title I schools, we had reduced class sizes for a couple of years. And I think you could get significant data from that to support the idea of smaller class sizes. Tim is right, it's really hard to connect. This year it's really hard to connect because the kids are not connected to you like they normally would be. It's been a very difficult year. Smaller class size when kids were out with COVID, things worked a lot better because you could relate better to the kids and they could relate better to you, and it was hard with not being able to see each other. But if we look back at that data and we really see that there was a significant difference for our just privilege, I don't know the word right now. But you know the kids who have, like my kids, when I do home visits when I was at Sutherland, I had one kid who turned in the most magnificent homework. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I went to his house and it was nothing but a sea of mattresses. And I'm like, how do you there's no table, there was no kitchen cabinet that was free or anything. I'm like, how do you do this? And he goes, I go in the bathroom and I close the door and lock it. And I put the toilet seat down and that's my desk. He's a doctor now. And he was, if you looked him at 6th grade and looked at his scores, you thought he's never going to amount to anything. But where there's a will, there's a way. And we can do this if we really decide we're going to do what's absolutely best for kids. And I'm not going to speak for everyone else, but I'd be willing to not take a pay raise. I know. That's what I'm saying. This is from my heart. Okay. To have these kids do better, because I worked at that school for 10 years, and then when they started saying, you can't teach them all the extra things, you can only teach them math and reading, because that's what we're testing. That's when I had to leave there. Because those kids need the world opened up to them. So, but we really, like everyone said, it's trust. Right now we don't have trust with each other, and that's not bargaining, that's just truth. And then on another side note, at CTA State Council, I'm on the Early Childhood Committee, and I haven't heard us talking about anything that we're doing to prepare for everything that's coming down the pipe for next year. From talking to a couple of the early childhood teachers, I'm hearing that they're not being treated very well. And since we're going to really need them next year, we're going to really, I want to hear what we are doing to get ready for this, because our early learning is the most important time in a child's life. It sets the tone for the rest of their life.
Thank you. Thank you. Board, any additional comments before we move on? Mr. Porter?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's wonderful all the teachers are here tonight. I salute you. I know how tired you are, and it's a long night, and it's wonderful that you're here, collaborative, speaking out how you feel. When I see test scores, immediately my back goes up from all the years of teaching, because the lightning rod is a teacher on that. And we all know there's so many different causes to achievement scores. Plus, the test has no hook to it. I mean, kids take it, they take it, they don't. I mean, you know, are they doing, you know, just treating it or whatever? But I hope that our teachers tonight don't take this as something towards themselves. I looked at the data, but the data can be not really informative. And there's a lot of things that need to go into looking at data. You know, one of the things you don't want to do is say, well, the teachers need to do a better job. That's not the case tonight. I appreciate Mr. Neely bringing this forward. This is more of a societal issue. And what I saw some improvement over the years, which shows me that our teachers are being very effective against all odds. So I'd be very wary of anybody looking at this and saying, oh, you know, the teachers need to do a better job. That's not the case. They're working hard and they're working very hard. So is our site administrators, so is our district administrators. We all want students to achieve. Now, how we come together and solve that problem, that is the key question. And what was brought forward tonight was wonderful. But again, I'm a linear person. Show me the next step. And you want teacher involvement? No, they're there. They'll give you their involvement. And they'll tell you what to do. And I agree with the idea of site by site. And those are some of the things that I've been pushing for. I hope that people have been listening, that sites need to make their own decisions on how to use things and go after what's needed in their small community. But tonight, I think it's great that the teachers are here, they're voicing their opinions, and we are listening. And we are going after this achievement gap with our site administration, with our district administration, and more importantly, I know our teachers will always be there. So I thank you for that, and I thank Mr. Neely for the presentation and what he put out. But data is, you can move it around and make things look different ways. So take it with a grain of salt, take it as something we need to look at and we're aware of, and we'll go from there. I have other comments later on about middle school and high school, but I do appreciate all the teachers being here this evening. It's very nice to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Any additional comments from the board? Thank you, Mr. Neely. Moving on to Superintendent's report.
Thank you, President McFarland, members of the board. Very briefly tonight, I just want to thank Mike McKilligan and the Personnel Department for hosting once again a certificated job fair. Lots of folks coming through. Also want to thank site administrators for doing the interviewing and being there. Also teachers who were there to help support the effort. So thank you very much to all who were involved in that.
Sorry, I was drinking my tea. Thank you, Dr. Washer. Moving on to comments from student representatives. Ladies, who wants to go first? First of all, welcome.
Thank you. Alrighty, so thank you, President McFarland, Dr. Washer, members of the board. I am Marissa Duterte, the ASB president of Ronald B. McNair High School.
Can you pull the microphone just a little bit closer?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Alright, so a few successful events we had was our Avid Toiletry Drive. A special shout out to our Avid senior class advised by Mr. Nisi-Hura, who ran a toiletry drive from February to March. The Avid students asked people from every class to donate by decorating boxes specialized around the classroom subjects. In total, they were able to raise up about 6,082 toiletry items, and on April 9th, these will all be donated to the Stockton homeless. We also had our first Friday of the month art hop, which was where many of our AVAPA students' artwork was displayed at the Lodi Community Arts Center last Friday on April 1st. Upcoming, we do also have our prom. Our junior committee and yearbook lead, Ms. Steinmeier, is almost ready to release their plan for prom. It'll be our first official off-campus and without COVID restrictions dance since the start of the pandemic. I heard from a little birdie that it'll be right here in Lodi. We also have our Link Crew Garden. Our very own Link Crew is working on beautifying our campus and fixing the garden in our quad. People of every grade, freshmen, sophomore, junior, and seniors are coming out to help. We also do have our last rally and Spirit Week. Student government is currently brainstorming ideas for our last rally and Spirit Week of the year. We've been throwing around some ideas and nothing really set in stone just yet. For sports, we are catching many of our spring sports mid-season. For badminton, they just played their first game against Stack on Thursday and faced Franklin today. We have our boys tennis who just faced Bear Creek today and on a record of 3 wins and only 1 loss so far. We do have our boys golf who are preparing to face their first game against Edison tomorrow. And lastly, we do have our boys volleyball, which is usually a McNair favorite and is currently 3-0 with a game against Franklin today. Thank you, and that's what's happening at McNair so far.
Thank you very much, Marissa. Board, any comments?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Taylor.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Thank you, President McFarland, members of the board, Dr. Washer. My name is Taylor Willis, and I'm the ASB president at Tokay. Currently, Tokay Theater Arts is performing Romeo and Juliet on April 7th, 8th, and 9th in our theater. Tokay After School program is hosting a freshman-only field trip on April 21st. Student government is hosting a Spirit Week this week in honor of Autism Awareness Month. During lunch, student government has been doing numerous activities, including decorating a puzzle piece, which is symbolic of autism awareness. Student government is also in full work mode for prom, which is on April 16th. Disney Grand Night has been scheduled for May 14th, and seniors are excited to finally be back into what feels like the real world. The annual NorCal Science Festival will be hosted at Tokay on April 23rd. The NorCal Science Festival is a one-day event that celebrates the different aspects of science. There will be different activities for all ages, even the parents. I lastly wanted to highlight Mr. John Chapman, who is the recipient of the National Endowment of Humanities, and Senior Shima Mosin for being the recipient of the A. Dale Lackey CIF Scholarship for Outstanding Student Athlete.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What was the date on the Science Festival?
April 23rd.
23rd?
23rd. It's a Saturday.
Okay.
Great. Any other additional comments? Everyone's quiet tonight. Thank you very much. I know. Mr. Freitas, are you there?
I'm good. We don't need to hear Freitas.
President McFarland, Mr. Freitas would like to ask, I'm sure, if there are any updates on college searches of our students.
Are you channeling him right now?
I was going to do an invitation.
I shared last meeting I was at, I accepted my admission to University of Nevada at Reno, so
Congratulations.
thank you. I'm kind of out of the loop on that, I already made my decision, but Marissa, what's good for you?
I'm currently undecided right now. I am trying to decide between Cornell and UC Berkeley.
Good for you.
Tough decisions. Congratulations to both of you. I know once the decision is made, it's a huge weight off your shoulders, but appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Anybody else? Okay, moving on. Thank you. I'm hoping you're going to stick around for the next little bit, and then you do what you have to do when you have to leave. Great, thank you. Moving on to consent agenda A, routine business. Would anyone like to pull anything? Someone's coming. No. Yes. Sitting. Okay. Just making sure. Board members, would you like to pull anything?
Move to approve.
Move to approve.
Well, when you say pull, I didn't have a comment on one of them. Consent.
Then you have to pull it.
it.
Which one would you like to pull?
I'd like to pull the grad requirement for discussion.
And that would be A3.
Yeah. For the.
Okay, let's vote on the other one.
Policy
Stay right there.
614611.
And- Oh, it's A2, I apologize. Don't move, let us get through the other ones and then we'll come back to A2. We have a motion from Mr. Neely and a second from?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Connexton. Okay, we're doing a verbal vote, is that what we said tonight? Any board comments? No? Okay, we're gonna take a verbal vote. Mr. Nava?
Yes.
Mr. Connexton?
Aye.
Mr. Neely?
Aye.
Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Mr. Freitas? I'm thinking we lost his connection.
Technical difficulty.
Technical difficulty. I am a yes, that would be a 5-0 with 2 absent votes. Okay, moving on to A2.
Okay, I appreciate you
Sure.
taking the time to listen. I gave some documents
to all of you on Tuesday, 2/2/2022, when this came up for the first time. I waited till 10:30. I gave these to the secretary, but I want to give them to you again because I'm going to refer to them in a quick comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as you know, as LPPA president, I was here for quite a few board meetings a while back. And around 4 years ago, there was a policy 6146.1 in place for a while, for about a decade, up until 4 or 5 years ago. That's number one in front of you. That's what the old 6146.1 was when it was changed to number 2. The comparison, I feel, is very important to see the difference between 1 and 2. In effect, from a counseling perspective, 2 changed the state requirement to a 9th grade course requirement, a year course requirement, but not a grad requirement. If you look at the second policy there on the back side, it says 9th grade only. It took the credits away from the requirement to graduate. So in effect, every freshman had to come in and take the course. But I didn't, if a kid failed out of it, I didn't have to put them back in Avid 9 after they were in Avid 10 and 11. And so basically, that's the way the policy was. There was some confusion among high school counselors, so there were some efforts to clarify that. I met with Dr. Sully on 2 different occasions. I think he and I see this kind of very differently. He sees it as my interpretation as a grade requirement was a misinterpretation of the original intent. So he has gone forward with this new policy he's proposing. If you look at that and open that up, can you open up the attachment document? There's 2 words in there that are added. Interestingly enough, it doesn't change it from 9th grade only. He left that in there. But he changed he says will pass. So attempt and will pass. I can't see it specifically, but and pass changed the whole game for us. So my freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, I have not had them taking this. In fact, number 3 on what I've given you, I had principal pull the kids out that I put in the requirement because it had been changed to a 9th grade requirement only. So all my kids have not been making this up, and now will pass. This is going forward, and it's supposedly, we've had it explained to us in some questions, that this doesn't come into effect with 8th grade. This effectively changes what I've told all my kids. So I'm done after this year. I don't really have a horse in the race on this, other than not being truthful with my kids if this does indeed come to play. So LPPA, I gave them a copy. They talked. The last document here is a resolution passed by LPPA. I'm not going to read it. You can read it. But in effect, what it says is to keep the current interpretation, or if we are going to change this policy, and it would be a change, will pass changes it completely. It doesn't seem like a big thing, maybe just a clarification, but it's different. And so if that does in fact go into play, all other course changes on grad policy and grad requirements go into effect with incoming 9th graders. They don't affect the kids. We've already got agreements going. The counselors at the different high schools are all shaken by this, and I have tried to explain it to Mr. Sully. We don't really see eye to eye on it. He's been very respectful in dealings, but I've been to 3 meetings on this to try to help clarify. I do think this new policy, it's the 3rd policy we'll have had in the last 5 years, and in my opinion, it's just going back to what we had before this board approved the policy number 2 on here, which in effect, all freshmen have to take the class, because when I was listening to all the family living teachers and things come forward, they didn't want kids to circumvent that 9th grade requirement. But we have not had them go back and have to repeat that. It's just they have to attempt it. And then it's clear in here in the language after it that if a kid comes in after 9th grade, they don't need to take it. As incoming students, it's not necessarily applies to them. They can get a waiver for it. So I have a problem with this going forward. The resolution, the conclusion, the therefore part, says if it's fine, I don't have a problem going forward, but if it goes forward, have it apply to the incoming ninth graders. That's my recommendation on that. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions from?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm jumping the gun here. Mr. Hunt?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out exactly what you're saying here.
Okay.
Are we saying that we had students graduate that did not pass these classes but just took them?
I'm saying the interpretation has been varied at the different high schools. And the interpretation was...
I mean, can you answer?
Yes.
So we had kids that were graduating.
That had taken the class as freshmen, like the policy said.
And failed.
And failed, right.
We counted it as...
Their attempt to take and attempt the class.
So they attempted the class, they failed the class, and we graduated. Because they attempted the class.
Yeah, they attempted the class. It wasn't a grad requirement. It was basically, in effect, not required to pass the class to graduate. So let me give you an example how this might play out. Let's say someone takes...
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that.
Takes AP Geography, fails a semester, passes a semester. That person coming back as a sophomore isn't going to have to take AP Geography for a semester as a sophomore, junior, or senior. A freshman failing family living. I had put them back as juniors and seniors into family living. The teachers didn't want a junior in their family living class, and basically they'd attempted it as a freshman. So in effect, the attempt in taking the course, in effect, that met their course requirement to take it as a ninth grader.
You interpreted it as it met the...
I didn't just interpret it. I was at these meetings, and it was spelled out to us that they had to take it in ninth grade but not pass it. It was changed as a graduation requirement. And I was here with all of you guys, and I listened to Don Vedeka, and we had numerous conversations.
No, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, that's okay.
Well, if you were instructed, because I obviously wasn't here, by district admin, that this is what you were supposed to do, and then you did your job, is that what you're telling me?
Well, we've been doing our job for a while. Now, there is some lack of clarity on this. That's why Mrs. Holly came in. We had some meetings because 2 high schools were doing it one way, 2 high schools were doing it another way.
I got you.
Okay, and this is problematic because it should be the same everywhere. So in his attempt to do it everywhere, Mr. Sally has taken a literal interpretation and put those 2 words in here, and pass.
Yeah, that came up a week ago.
And in his mind, that pretty much clarified things. However, I get the impression that clarification was a clarification indicating fault on everybody that's been doing it else the other way for 3 straight years. And that hasn't been the case. We've been doing what we were told to do.
Correct.
We got a little fancy back then in how we worded this. In fact, if you look at the changes in the policy, there's some very clever changes between 1 and 2. If you notice the second page, the credits were removed from number 7. It says 5 is out in the margin as being required. And then on the second page of number 2, it's removed from that margin. It does say 10 credits should be taken. It says 9th grade only.
Right.
I don't know why this new policy is coming forth and still saying 9th grade only, because if a 9th grader fails something and has to take it, and it says 9th grade only, how do you get around that? So this is really confusing, and it's an attempt on his part to clarify things, but I think in clarifying it, it's gotten very confusing. And there's juniors out there that we go through and have them make up their world history and make up their English and make up everything. The reason we don't have them make up the state requirements is that there are pieces, and those pieces aren't always so simple to make up. If a student fails driver's ed, I give him a sheet and he takes it through a certain place and gets his 2.5 credits. The health, though, 2.5. It's, no effort. It's problematic to create missing pieces. AVID, it's AVID 9. If a kid goes on to AVID 10 or 11, that doesn't count for the course requirement his 9th grade year. So you can't pass AVID as a 10th grader and take 5 credits of 10th grade AVID and apply it to 9th grade AVID, because AVID covers those 9th grade state requirement materials within that AVID 9 section.
Gotcha.
So is he going to take AVID 9? It's an issue, and it's one that was tried to clear up, but I feel that, this answer isn't a problem if it's grandfathered in with 8th graders and there's some consideration given to all the deals that have been, come to an understanding with the counselors and the students thus
far. So if I can summarize for you, you would like to see this as a 8th grade?
I think the way I feel, if you look at the fourth page, there's a therefore. Therefore, LPPA recommends the current board policy 6146.1 go unchanged and that transcripts be adjusted so that it not be listed as a grad requirement or current waiver consideration continue to apply, okay? Or the newly implemented change, like you just said, to board policy 6146.1 that is considered and passed is coming incoming months be applied to incoming students, not current students. Because we've been assured once this passes, it's going to apply to all our kids, including our seniors. I had a counselor at Tokay take a kid out of a class and put him in a state requirement class.
Right.
Now it's AB 104 covers, this isn't an AB 104 student, this is a regular 230 requirement. So we were told that this policy, even though it's not passed yet, but once it passes, it will retroactively apply as interpretation for the last 4 years. And I came tonight after track practice because this just fries me to no end, but again, I don't have a horse in the race in 46 days, so I'm out the door. I just don't want a kid coming into the counselor's office and saying, but Mr. Hunt said, and then everybody feels, well, Mr. Hunt, he was losing it anyway toward the end. Well, anyway, thank you very much so much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt.
Yeah.
Dr. Sully, would you like to weigh in and then we'll...
Yeah, because I'm...
Yeah, because I didn't want to throw him under the bus, I wasn't trying to. He's a nice guy.
He's near the
very
wheel
gracious.
right now, so...
He did a good job of throwing him under the bus.
He's in the wheel a little.
President McFarland, members of the board, Dr. Washer, thank you from Mr. Hunt for your interest in this and clarifying some things for me as I dug into this. The addition of those two words, passing, I thought was important because it came to my awareness that we did have two schools doing one thing and two schools doing another. One considering it as a simply take the course, pass, fail doesn't matter, and others presuming you need to pass it. I personally, and I professionally, I don't know why it's a requirement if it's not required to pass. Otherwise, take it off the list. So I think that's why the language is there. And I believe it brings clarity to all. The impact of on incoming freshmen and those as currently as your senior, I agree that when a policy is enacted, there's this grandfathering effect. And so at the end of all this, there will be an update date. If it's the board's pleasure, we can add a sentence that says impacting the class of such and forward.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think we should, this is just my opinion, follow those guidelines because it seems like there was some miscommunication years ago. And I'm kind of shocked that we were allowing kids to graduate where they had failed. But, miscommunication, and I don't want to penalize those students or those counselors that thought they were doing the right thing. So if we could grandfather it and have it start with the 8th graders, and then you could put the caveat in for us.
Yeah. And also, I'm sorry to interrupt, point of clarification, also in the new proposed document, that 9th grade list of courses is actually listed. Because in prior years, it was only listed in the course catalog, which is not a board-approved document. And so I looked far and wide to find which courses are effectively in the 9th grade wheel, as it's called. And you have to actually go back to the course proposals, which sit up in my office, to find those. So I wanted to codify that also by putting it in the document itself.
Well, thank you. And Mr. Hunt, thank you as well. I have a better understanding now. Thank you.
Thank you. So when this comes to vote, we are voting on the document in front of us. I want to clarify before.
No, that's the question. Do you need this in a hurry? No. Can we go one more meeting?
Yes.
And then you can
We can
rewrite that
revise it.
into it? So we
Okay.
can table it to the next meeting.
Sure.
I
But
propose we table it to the
I would
next
like to
meeting.
hear Michelle's comments before we make that.
We need to hear Michelle.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Great. Come on up, Michelle.
Thank you, Dr. Sully.
Thank you.
First, I want to say thank you, Mr. Hunt, for he's got a lot of historical knowledge, and great to hear that. I get the feeling, though, that it makes a group feel like they've misled students, but the policy was very clear. So I hate for us to, unless we're grandfathering back, to have those students expect that. So if we're talking grandfathering this back so that the students they've counseled do not have to change course plans along the way, because that's big. I'm sure our high school students can attest to the planning that goes through for some of these by not passing. I'm concerned with that going forward. If any students have not passed, that they would need to in the next couple of years.
No, we're gonna,
That's, I believe,
So-
Michelle, that's what Dr. Solly's gonna go
So-
back and work on it and bring it back.
Okay,
Correct.
I just hate to hear that. It sounds like some people have been talking to students and the policy says that they can go on, so they've been counseling at that. I hate to have students in that limbo. Okay, yeah, great. Right, it just,
we got
the
it.
way it sounds.
President McFarland, there has never been any statement that counselors or school staff did anything wrong or counseled students incorrectly. The policy was not clear. Those who worked on it at first probably had the good understanding, but then as the years went on, it morphed. And so the lack of clarity in the policy was the problem. So nobody is saying that anybody did anything wrong.
So I think the big question is, what are we gonna do without Mr. Hunt?
Life will be easier.
I think Marlon and I move that we table this.
A second.
So we will table A2 to come back. Great.
And thank you, Mr. Sully, for catching that.
Yeah, thank
know,
you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt, for bringing it to our attention. We don't want to harm students, and I don't think you
No,
do.
no,
Thank you very much.
All right, we're moving on to consent agenda A.
B.
I want, B. Oh, I'm sorry. I
Madam
apologize.
Chairman, I move we approve consent agenda B discipline cases.
Second.
I-
Okay.
Hold on, Mr.
I would like to pull item
Oh, sorry.
B1 expulsion, student number 21/22/7 22-7-63, and consent agenda B.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Nava. Great, so we are voting to approve B2 through B5. Any board comments? Any public comments? Yeah, well, so I'm going to do I'm assuming Mr. Freitas has not come back?
I texted him and he did not text back, so I'm assuming he did.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
Robert
He wants
wine
us
on
to
his
call.
phone.
Okay, I am calling for a vote. Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Mr. Neely?
Aye.
Mr. Conexton? Mr. Nava?
Aye.
And I am also an aye, so that is 5-0 with 2 absent. We're giving up on Mr. Freitas, not.
We're gonna try one more time.
Okay. Moving on to action items. OAI1, Mr. Khan.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
President
girls.
McFarland, members of the board, Dr. Washer. The board heard this proposal via report at the March 29th meeting. I could go through the concept again. Director Cook is also here if the board has any questions.
Madam Chairman, I move we approve this OA11.
Second.
Mr. Nava was a motion, and Mr. Neely was the second. Any board comments? Any public comments? Move to vote.
And Mr. Freitas is back.
Mr. Freitas is back. Are you there?
Absolutely. Sorry about that.
We are on OAI1. Do you have any comments? We have a motion and a second to vote.
No comment.
Great, we're calling for the vote. Mr. Freitas?
Aye.
Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Mr. Neely?
Aye.
Mr. Conexton?
Aye.
Mr. Nava?
Aye.
The vote is 6-0 with 1 absent. Moving on, OAI2, Mr. McKilligan.
Madam President, this is an item to get an exemption to the separation from service requirement with STRS for this employee, so the employee may work within the first 180 days.
Thank you, Mr. McKilligan. Any board comments?
Motion approved.
Second.
Mr. Porter motions, Mr. Nava seconds. Mr. Freitas?
Aye.
Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Mr. Neely?
Aye.
Mr. Conexton?
Aye.
Mr. Nava?
Aye.
6-0, motion passes with 1 absent. OAI3, Mr. Warren, come on up.
I'm bringing back the job descriptions for the mental health district positions. They were vetted by Workman's Comp and also an attorney. No requested changes.
Great, thank you, Mr. Warren. Any?
I move we approve.
Wow, okay, I think Mr. Neely beat you.
That's all right. I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Nava. Any additional comments from the public or the board? Call for the vote. Mr. Nava.
Aye.
Mr. Conexton.
Aye.
Mr. Neely.
Aye.
I'm an aye. And Mr. Porter?
Aye. Mr. Freitas.
Mr. Freitas? I'm going down the line. Mr. Freitas?
Aye.
6-0. Motion approves with 1 absent. Thank you, Mr. Warren. My favorite time of the evening. Mr. McKilligan.
Madam President, routine personnel matters are presented for your consideration.
Madam President, I move we approve personnel matters.
Mr. Nava motions, Mr. Porter second. Any comments from the public or the board? Move to vote. Mr. Freitas.
Aye.
Mr. Porter.
Aye.
Mr. Neely.
Aye.
Mr. Conexton.
Aye.
Mr. Nava.
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. That would be 6-0 with 1 absent. Mr. McGregor. We're on a roll here.
Good evening. President McFarland, members of the board, and Dr. Washer. I'm excited to share with you the progress we've made over the course of the year on a partnership for growing futures at Valley Robotics. Carolyn Gromsdorf and Sarah Robb from Empower Schools have helped lead the following people through monthly planning meetings as we've moved forward with this adventure. The people include Dr. Stacy Kahn, the principal at VRA, also her STEM coordinator, Christina Colburn at VRA. Delta College, we've had Acting Dean Pablo Ortega and the Dean of CTA and Workforce Development, Danielle Hepworth, join us. The Wine Grape Commission, Research and Education Director of Sustainable Wine Growing, Stephanie Bolton. And finally, from San Joaquin A+, the CEO, Don Shalby, and Chief Operating Officer, Kai Kung. We've made great progress in designing a new and innovative high school experience for Lodi Unified students that builds an intentional through line from high school to higher education and the agricultural industry. I'd like to review the executive summary slide and then invite Principal Dr. Stacy Kahn and STEM Coordinator Christina Colburn up to discuss the details of the program and answer any specific questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor.
I hope, have you all had an opportunity to look through the plan?
Yes.
So, basically, the opportunity, and I won't read it. I think that's kind of insulting when you just read through a PowerPoint. And for time's sake, the work we've done has been great. Carolyn and Sarah have really led an effort, and pulling in especially Pablo and Danielle from Delta College, seeing how we can prepare kids to get into the portion of the program that takes them to a UC, and then also partnering with various ag businesses and getting input from them to see how we can prepare children with certificates from Delta College to go right into the workforce if that should be their choice, right out of Delta College, or for that matter, out of Valley Robotics. So it's been a great adventure. It's been a lot of fun. And really the purpose of this report is just to update you with the progress and see where we're going. So at this time, if I could have Stacy and Christina come forward. Thank you. Any questions you might have? Or I'll let Stacy go ahead and talk about the finer points of the program.
Alrighty, we've had quite a year coming in. It was something we were not aware of that we were going to be blessed with. In September, October, before Jeff Humphlis left, he invited us in a meeting and I had no idea what was going on. In hindsight, it has been absolutely positively one of the best things that have happened to VRA and to any of the schools. They have taken our concept and moved it to bigger and broader areas. Do you want to talk about the two pathways?
Yeah, so the main kind of pathways that they're looking at doing is, or that we're looking at doing is ag tech and ag tourism. So the ag tech would be trying to get kids into using what they're already learning in robotics and things at Delta and through VRA, but then expanding that into applying it to the ag industry here in Lodi and the greater Lodi area for our community and for themselves. And then the ag tourism, we're looking at helping them focus on business and entrepreneurship and hospitality and doing different things with Delta depending on what degree plans we end up going with, getting certificates, getting their associates, getting things that they can use to transfer to the UC if they choose to do that. But it's just a really good opportunity for them to either do a CTE pathway or to transfer and then also get the work experience, which is a huge piece while they're with us.
Yeah, and I think the committee will, not us, but Sarah and Stephanie and Carolyn, their big push and the whole thing is connecting with our community partners. And that's our next piece that we're moving into. We've worked on, you can see like course pathway for the students 8th grade through their 12th grade year. We've already started on our 8th grade right now. They're applying to Delta College. They're going to take a summer school. So we're way ahead than we have been the last 2 years. But being in school has been very helpful. They've also been very instrumental in creating a graduate profile. I always forget that word, which I had never seen. And it's some checkoff list things that these are the things that we'll see from our students when they leave VRA.
Fantastic. Board, do you have questions?
Yes, you begin this, actually preparations are all this year, and you begin this on fall of 22-23.
So our first cohort of 9th grade would be that,
8th grade.
No, yeah, 8th grade will be the 22-23 year, and then there'll be freshmen that following year.
So the 8th graders won't take any college courses. They're just going to be doing their regular coursework and then getting just introduced to, you know, what is the ag industry? What are some technology-based things that, you know, ag offers? What are some business opportunities and entrepreneurship things? Just giving them, you know, the ideas behind, like, what could you do if you stayed in Lodi, if you stayed in the area, if you wanted to work in the ag industry or become, you know, a business person or technology in that.
And what grade level do you start your college?
9th.
The next year?
Yeah, they could even do, we're going to have our 8th grade do a summer, it's kind of like a introduction to college
course over the summer.
What an awesome opportunity to offer this. My gosh, we live in this area where we have ag tourism and ag tech and all that, so it just fits right in. And like I said, you're going to partner in for a lot of people that will, and these youngsters that are coming out can go in and just go to work right away, I think, huh?
And I think that's the important piece is we've designed, the team has designed both the CTE pathway that they can walk out and work and or they move on to a 4-year. So they have both opportunities.
Thank
or
you.
they can do both.
Thank you, Mr. Nava. Mr. Connexted?
Yeah, thank you. This is great. This is exactly the type of stuff that I have been talking about since my time on the board. One of the things I'm kind of curious is there room for expanding things besides, say, ag tourism? I'm looking at the course requirements and basically they're general education courses, so I'm sure, you know, if you were going to go into some kind of a business opportunity, you know, those courses would probably mostly be the same. One of the things I'm thinking though, because it always says ag on it, that might be really big in this area, I'm not, you know, I guess, but I don't know if there's a way we tweak the term, the word a little bit, or the title, so that more people might see that as an opportunity, a great opportunity that it really is.
So the overarching name of the program right now is, as it stands, is Growing Futures at Valley Robotics Academy.
Okay.
And the ag piece, you know, if they're going to get their degree in business or entrepreneurship, the ag portion would be The way we're envisioning it right now would be the work-based learning piece, but the
Okay.
courses they're taking would just be your business, your
Sure,
entrepreneurship,
it'd be
whatever.
I'm sure it'd be regional.
Yeah, so it's really still gonna have some flexibility based on what the students' goals are.
Okay, good. Hey, this is great, thanks.
Mr. Neely?
It's incredible. You guys have done some real work on this. Dr. Washer, you and I were in that very first meeting at Delta College, and we sat down, and this was just a concept back then. And I gotta hand it to you ladies, you have really taken this and run with it.
Well, we've been really blessed by the team, and Jeff, you know.
There's a
provided
whole lot of
really-
people.
Yeah, it's not just, we're not
You
just
can't
us.
take the
No,
credit.
you're the ones who take the credit. You're the
We've been very blessed.
Great job. Some questions about the school itself right now. What's your attendance? What's your
So our enrollment right now is
enrollment?
210. We're K-12 now.
How much?
210.
Great. I remember
Early.
early years it was
74.
Yeah, we had to wait. For a while. Yeah, so, and it continues to grow. You have a waiting list. You have more people on the waiting list than you do that.
We have, right now, because of facilities, yeah, we have kinder first that are waiting to get in next year. Middle school, we have wiggle room, especially with our 7th grade class. But we have about 90 right now for next year on the docket to come in.
Okay. Is there anything that we need to do to put on the planning schedule for increasing the capacity out there?
Yes, you need to build a new school.
Consider it done.
Please and thank you.
So do we need to do something? I mean, that's a great location out there.
He's not
It's in
making eye
between.
contact with you.
It's between Stockton and Lodi, and it's a perfect place to do it, so. Mr. Khan, can you get on that?
Right away, sir.
Great job, ladies, thank you very much. And I
Thank
hope
you.
we're gonna expand beyond these two things, but we're starting out with these two, and then we're gonna continue to move on.
Absolutely.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Mr. Neely, members of the board, I'm glad you said that because you may recall we talked about the grant, this was from a competitive grant and Stanford was involved in the design. That's what this is, a result of that process.
Perfect.
And so it is creating a model that then can be replicated for other areas. But I want to mention that I think that one of the reasons why we were able to be successful with the grant process is because we already had VRA in place and the model was already there. So I think that, you know, your vision for that really set the tone for more things to come.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neely. Thank you, Dr. Washer. Mr. Freitas, do you have any comments?
Very much support. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Porter.
No, all the comments have been made. It's a wonderful job. Thank you, ladies. I do have a quick question for you, though, Mrs. Khan.
Yeah.
Now, were you able to get your kids successfully on athletic teams?
Yes.
I heard you did a great job.
Well, that's by the skin of our teeth that we did it.
Very good. I like that.
You just have to have that ringer, the right one that really wants to be on the team.
No, I just like how you handled it.
Great.
But we're good for next year.
Great. If you have any problem with that.
Okay, thank you.
I'd also like just to say fantastic. When I hear the word ag, I get excited. I'm from a farming family. And so I think the misnomer is that ag is animals, fruits, vegetables. And I think you don't have ag without business and other components. And I think for any of us sitting here to be naive to think that we're talking about the ground or the soil or the water, when you say ag, I think it's very naive of us in this community. And if we don't know that, then people need to kind of sit up and start learning about ag, because you're not successful in the ag industry without business and marketing and finance and the other components. And I would love, I'm just very excited that you're introducing this to our students, that ag is much more than just what a lot of us were exposed to.
Well, it's the simplicity of the drones that we're working with that now can put beneficial insects over the crop.
Absolutely.
So I mean,
it's so much bigger.
Yeah.
And so I love that we're enticing these young people to get exposure and then go out and get bigger degrees and then bring it back to our community and how. And I think the bridge between what you can do with it and what it can do for our community is, I mean, that's, as all of our children have graduated colleges and high school, you're like, just come back and give more to your community. And this is giving an avenue, so thank you. We're very fortunate. Thank you, Jeff Palmquist, wherever you're at. Thank you, ladies, and Mr. McGregor, thank you for carrying on the work. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any additional comments from the community, public, community outlet? Okay, moving on. We're now down to, wait, before I jump forward, they're going to come back with more in time, correct?
We will keep you posted with updates as we go. We wanted to make sure you had an update now because we are starting the first cohort.
Great, thank you so much. Communication, employee groups. I know Michelle's here. Desiree's here too? I can't, oh, she's not, no.
I'm here, but.
Come on, Desiree.
Thank you, though.
Welcome, Michelle, again. You're walking better tonight.
Time helps. Good evening, President McFarland, members of the board, Dr. Washer, members of the public. I want to first, as mentioned tonight, thank the district for the invitation to participate in the job fair, allowing Leah again to participate and have a table. The event was set up beautifully, although we had very few candidates compared to years prior. I think it was very well organized and we appreciated that opportunity. I come to you tonight with many members who now have left to go home and prepare for tomorrow. But I want to address a couple of things that happened at the bargaining table today. The first thing I'd like to address is this idea of doing things on our own personal time. Does your attorney, if she wraps up at the table, not charge you to do work for you on her personal time? Of course she bills you those hours. Your teachers that sat here in the audience tonight that came to you, the bargaining team heard at the table today, they should do the Keenan videos on their own personal time as a professional. That is utterly, totally disrespectful. Some of those teachers are lucky to even have prep during a week. If you're a primary teacher, 1 through 3, you're lucky to have 70 minutes to prepare. Kindergarten teachers have none. To expect them to do 6 hours of Keenan videos on their own personal time is so disrespectful. We understand they are requirements for the district. Respect your employees and give them the time. It costs you nothing with what the bargaining team has proposed. The next item is preschool. No COLA? This is absolutely ridiculous. You are treating them as if they are second-class citizens. You have loaded their plates. Not only did they flip on a dime like every other teacher in this district for their students, but they did so for the parents that they had to work with and do home visits via Zoom with all of their families. This change to them was incredible. To say that they do not get COLA because they got the last raise? No, they should be respected. What really should happen is every preschool teacher in our district should be valued and shown by being put on a salary schedule. The plan, we understand that they're funded differently. The plan for the state for early education has expanded. We know that they are in the process of credentialing them. But you have gone ahead and changed their working conditions. And you plan on changing working conditions next year to have even more of those state preschool teachers be inclusion teachers. This plan of inclusion and planning for it to be expanded is terrible vision. You have not listened to the stakeholders. You have not listened to our concerns. You are driving out our preschool teachers to other districts at a rate exponential. On top of that, the ones that are left behind that are dedicated to Lodi are being asked to double serve. You're done with class here. Make up your time with your families. Go teach this other class. And you're telling us today that you don't even respect them enough to give them COLA. I have no idea what to tell a preschool teacher about staying in Lodi Unified with that show. With your words at the table are so disrespectful. Your teachers out here that earned a master's degree, they're preschool teachers, they don't get it. They don't get the compensation at all. But the rest of the teachers in the district who have a master's or a doctorate, the proposal is $47 a year additional. For a doctorate, $75 additional a year. Why would anyone continue with that higher education? CPI. Many of you have had CPI days as a teacher. No-tell days. I understand that the idea of all teachers taking off and sitting in Starbucks, drinking a cup of coffee, costing the district, you know what? A no-tell day is a no-tell day. The state gives them the sick days. You get to interpret and allow how those parameters happen. You heard at the last board meeting, members who have not been able to attend family events. And I want all of you that were former teachers, those of you that have family that have been teachers, to think about the events that you are asking your employees basically to lie about. It costs you nothing. Respect them enough to allow them to use no-tell days as no-tell days. If their kid goes to college, to be allowed to take the day off to take them to college. You have 2 high school reps here. If their parents are teachers, they can't take a day off to go take them to college because there's travel involved. Please think about the consequences of the language. The last one I want to leave you with that costs you nothing is leaves. The language in our contract is archaic. It is not clear. We have members who call time and time again. I'm being told this, then I'm told this, then I'm told this. We have to sit and mediate conversations. Respect your employees. Put language in that talks about the laws and what they are, so that your employees can clearly understand what entails for each of the leaves and what they're entitled to by law. Costs you nothing to spell it out. We know that this has been a problem in the past. Let's fix it. It is incomprehensible, some of the things that happened at the table today. Bottom line, for any of our members to be told they are not valued enough for COLA is not okay in our book. We need you to change that and value all teachers for the job they do. Please look at the bargaining proposal that has been sent back to you. Please look at the language. What can you do to make this better for all teachers? Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I want to make sure there's no other bargaining reps in the, okay. Board members, any comments?
I'll just say
There you are.
quick words really
Great.
quick. Good evening, Dr. Washer, members of the board, Desiree Wise with CSEA. I did reach out to a couple of you, but I guess since I'm here, Wanted to say thank you for your support in helping us achieve our TA for our reopeners. And we are scheduled to ratify next week, and I'm pretty sure we will. So thank you for that, and looking forward to our next session on April 11th. Hoping you'll give our COVID MOU some thought and consideration. Just reminding you, Lincoln Unified is offering stipends over the summer for classified positions currently posted on adjournment. So just, yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Desiree. Communication from board members. Mr. Neely.
Real quick, got an email today from a student at Tokay about the bathrooms and the issues there. This TikTok challenge, I guess is from that where kids were asked to vandalize school bathrooms and make a video of them. So I've come with the idea that we need to have a TikTok challenge for all students to pass courses. And then that will pretty much solve any problems that we have on that. Seriously, the issue is, I understand and I appreciate our people trying to protect our facilities and our equipment. To have just one bathroom open on campus is not a good solution. We need to put our heads together on that and come up with a better solution, and it needs to be right away. And that's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Mr. Neely. Any other board comments?
Yeah, Ms. McFarland, I just, a couple of words here. I know that Mr. Neely brought up this achievement gap that we have, or not gap, but learning. I need, a study session would be great. We need to exchange strategies. There are some things out there that are being done. There are some things that need to be done, and there are some things that are not being done. I grew up in a poor neighborhood, didn't have a newspaper to read in the morning, so I understand a lot of the poverty that happens, and I understand the needs of some of those parents to be able to communicate and to support their people, the youngsters to enjoy school and participate in education and gather as much things as they can. It's such an important thing. I know that most of the parents are very strict in demanding that their students be educated. So I think that the study session would be a great thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nava. Mr. Porter.
I thought you were going to go with Mr. Freitas.
I went with you first this time.
Okay.
Change it up a little.
First of all, it's great that the teachers are here this evening to represent their concerns. It's always nice. My big bugaboo, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, is what's going on at our middle schools through our high schools. And it stems off the bathroom issue. This also stems off what Aaron, Principal Lindsay was talking about the other night. We have a behavioral problem in middle school through high school. And the teachers are exhausted, and our site admin are exhausted. And I understand the bathroom situation. I also understand if I was a site admin and you got to go into the bathrooms and been destroyed. I do know at Tokay now they've gone down to having the campus security sit at the bathroom and have one student go in at a time because it got so bad. And yes, TikTok was a part of it. TikTok was also doing things where you take one thing from a student's, from a teacher's classroom and take it to another, and it's all ridiculous. Anyway, my biggest concern, and I'd like to see maybe if we can get some information on that, I don't know who I've talked to, is truancy. We have a tremendous truancy problem. Aaron, Principal Lindsay, did a pre-COVID, and then she did a current truancy data. It was doubled the amount of truancy that's going on at the middle school. Now, getting back to your achievement gap, if the kids aren't in class, they're not going to learn. And I was over at Tokay today, and I was shocked at from something that had to do with CIA. And I was shocked at the number of kids who were just wandering around. Because Tokay never was that way. I was there 3 years ago. And you could go through second period and there might be 1 or 2 kids walking around. It wasn't happening. And I walked out in the parking lot and there was probably 20 kids. And they were nice, nothing going on, but my biggest concern is what we can do, not pointing fingers at side or teachers or anything like that, what we can do. Earlier, we talked about tardy policies, things like that. We need to bring back a little more control. And I think some people are not getting the support that they need, especially the administrators, and then down to the teachers, because they're exhausted in dealing with behavioral issues. And I remember a long time ago, I had a good friend who ended up being superintendent at Lincoln, Tom Uslan. And I asked him once, and we were calling around, what do you look for when you go into a classroom and you're watching a teacher? He goes, first thing I evaluate is control. Does the teacher have control? And then I look at content, because you're not going to be able to learn anything. What are we doing at our middle schools? And I'm talking about we, all of us, society, parents, everything. What are we doing at our high schools where kids are truant, kids are defiant, our teachers are beat up. Parents aren't respecting them anymore, kids aren't respecting them. Same thing goes with our administrators. I was shocked to hear Principal Lindsay say that this is the first time she said so many kids just blatantly in her face say, I'm not doing that, and some other words that go with it that are not very appropriate. So I would like this board, as part of maybe a study session that Mr. Nava so eloquently spoke about, we need to look at not telling the site what to do, but taking a look at the rules that we have in place and supporting them on enforcing those rules. Being late to class is not acceptable. Being out of class is not acceptable. How are teachers to teach when kids are walking in 5-10 minutes late, and then you got to deal with that issue? Or you're a site administrator, you got to deal with a parent, and you got 5 kids sitting over here not being in class, and you've got all these things to take care of. It's tough. And I know why everybody's exhausted. I have an idea. I'm not there in the trenches. But man, if I was working there now, I don't know if I could take it. I could take it, but it'd be an ugly situation. But my point is, we need to, as a board, maybe, not tell, but tell teachers and site administrators, we have their back. This isn't anything other than, you're a student, we're asking you to come to class, be on time, learn, sit in your seat, do the best you can. We will be there, and I know the teachers will take that above and beyond. And even if one student's better than the other, the teacher will adjust the curriculum and do all they have to do. And it's like taking plates and you've got 5 of them spinning on different sticks. And you try to keep that plate going and that plate going in the classroom. And you got to turn around and do it the next period right after that. It's amazing what teachers do, especially at the middle school and high school level, and our elementary. They work very hard with all different curriculum they have to do. So my long point in this is, it's not going good right now. We'll see it in our test scores because these kids are not in class. And they're used to being not in class because they were home during COVID. And I'd love to see what our truancy is at our middle schools and high schools now versus fourth quarter pre-pandemic, and see what's going on. And then what we can do as a board to help and support the site. So those are my comments. Thank you. I don't know if Mr. McGregor could help me out on that or something like that, but I would like to get a report of truancy. It's a big issue. You can't learn unless you see it.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. I would tend to agree with my board members, all my board members' comments. I think the piece that we don't have is readily right in front of us tonight is what our assistant superintendents are doing. This is probably not a new issue to them. It's probably not a new issue to the teachers, the staff. I can go from cafeteria down to janitors to, they're all seeing it, they're all cleaning up messes, they're all, verbal messes, physical messes, we could go on and on. Absolutely, and so I think that just because it's not in front of us, we're getting dwindling pieces of it, doesn't mean it's not being worked on. I do think it would be great to have a study session when it fits into our, it's not going away. I think it's going to take some time to work out the pieces of it. And there's a lot of moving parts with a lot of different school sites with different problems. And I think our assistant superintendents, Mr. McGregor and Mr. Young, have their hands full to go, maybe it's sort this out. Can we give them a little bit of time
Oh,
to
yeah,
gather
this
some
is-
data?
I'm thinking this is a step for next year. It's too
Got it.
late now.
So are you willing to say we can, I don't want to say pause it because the people in the trenches don't get to pause it. But I'm saying in order to gather enough information to have a proper study session where we've got insight from our stakeholders, meaning our teachers, our staff, our sites.
Yeah,
Can we give a little bit of time?
My goal is to make everybody aware now.
Got it.
And then my goal is that we work on this through the summer.
Yep.
And we hit the ground running next year, so that Principal Lindsay tried to hit it off the fourth quarter,
Mm-hmm.
with the horse down the barn. And good
Okay.
for her for trying.
Got
You
it.
know, bless her for that. But I think next year we need to hit the ground. This is what we expect of our students and our parents.
Got it. Dr. Washer, do you have any questions or concerns or?
Completely understand.
Okay, got it. Great. Mr. Freitas, thank you. Mr. Freitas?
We may have lost him.
We've lost him.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, he's alive.
From Collegiate, where?
You're not. Mr. Freitas, do you have any board comments?
I'd like to apologize for the technical difficulties today. I do appreciate the board letting me come. I'm teaching district attorneys tomorrow from across the state, and I know that it was an inconvenience tonight, but I do appreciate the board accommodating me. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Freitas. Any comments from Dr. Washer?
Thank you, President McFarland. Real quick, April 23rd is a busy day in Lodi Unified. We do have the Science Festival, as was previously mentioned. It's also the art show that we do in conjunction with Got Kids over at Mickey Grove at the museum. So hopefully you can bounce around to a couple things on April 23rd because they'll both be fantastic. So thank you so much.
Our show's at Mickey Grove.
Mickey Grove at the San Joaquin Historical Museum.
And the,
Science
is that Tokay, correct? Got it. Without any other comments, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. It is 8:55. Mr. Knob, is that acceptable?
I think that's every